Hello, my friends. This is a special episode of our podcast. We have the honor and joy to have in our podcast our academic friend, Dr. Eleni Ponirakis from Pembroke College, Oxford. Dear Dr. Ponirakis, welcome to our podcast, and thank you for your for being here and talk to us about our great passion.
Well, thank you very much for asking me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Have you had the time to check on the questions that were submitted by our
Yes, I have
fans?
have a little bit of a look at that. I've got them.
So, if you, as you have may noticed yourself, the main questions are about the historical figure of Arthur and how possible it is for this person or this legend to have actually existed. What is your say in that?
Well, I think it depends what we mean by who we mean by Arthur. I mean, the Arthur of the legends, the Arthur of the Round Table and the knights. No, that's fantasy. That there may have been a hero called Arthur who gave his name to these legends. That is possible, and I think even likely. But the earliest references. Well, there is one very early reference to the name Arthur, but it doesn't really give us very much information. So he may have been a great leader. I think what it probably would be after the Romans left Britain, the people left behind, and it would have been a slow process. It wouldn't have been, one day to the next. So there would be a bit of a process. But once they're sort of gone, and we've got people coming from the north, from the Picts from Scotland, we've got some of the sort of Vandals and that coming over from Europe, and you've also got infighting because all the Britons, rather than uniting, they're all trying to make their own little tribal kingdoms and things. So they're very vulnerable. And then when the Saxons come over, the legend has it that they're invited over by King Vortigern. But however it happened, we've got battles between the Britons and the invading Anglo-Saxons. And this Arthur, whoever he is presumably some kind of leader. Is he a king? Is he a general? A leader of men who's obviously very brave and who obviously succeeded in defeating, we can imagine that he must have defeated the Saxons in some kind of battle, possibly Mount Badon, but possibly not.
So these Saxons were these fierce savages as were described in, for example, Geoffrey of Monmouth, or are these so culturally different concerning the fact that we now say England as Anglo-Saxon England, not just Britain England. So what were these Saxons like at not the fictional, but the historical period of time at this time?
At that time, they were a pretty scary bunch, I think. They were very effective soldiers. And some of the Roman historical records talk about them as being sort of blue-eyed, blonde-haired pirates that are terrifying if they attack your ships at sea. They were pagan, of course. So, and the Britons were Christian by this point. So I don't think that helps because we had the same thing. I say we. The English had the same thing a few hundred years later when the Vikings start raiding. By this time, the Saxons have become Christian and more. Well, I hesitate to use the word civilized. That's a bit value laden, but they were Christianized, and the Vikings were sort of heathen, so a lot more ruthless and violent, and again they're pirates that are out to get money by any means and no moral scruples. So I think the early Saxons would have been very similar to that.
So it's correct how they were depicted in the folk tales as brutal savages and barbarians, or something like this.
Well, again, these are very value-laden terms. I mean, from a Christian perspective, they are. I mean, I'm sure they had some interesting I'm sure they were culturally interesting. Were they savages? It depends what you mean by savage. I think they didn't have Christian moral scruples about killing people for their money. So in that respect, yes. But I think they're terms that we need to be careful of because they are value-laden terms. I mean, I suspect they were not barbarians in the sense of, dirty people who very ignorant and all the rest of it. I think they probably were sophisticated in their own way, but they were a ruthless fighting machine.
And with a different moral and philosophical approach to life, apparently.
At that point, of course, yeah.
So what made the Arthur legend stick to our hearts for so many centuries if it wasn't the reality that struck to us?
Well, I mean, I think there's two sort of strands of the Arthur legend. I mean, there's the early accounts. I mean, the very earliest account is in a Scottish poem called the Gododin. And it is quite possible that if there was a real Arthur, that he would actually have been from what would be the north of England or the south of Scotland, but all of that would have been connected to Wales as one kingdom at that time. So the terms become people in Ireland were called Scots in the early Middle Ages, so it's all a little bit. But anyway, in this poem, it's written by I mean, obviously the manuscript is later, but it's supposedly written by a famous Scottish poet called Aneurin. And he mentions a great warrior called Guardel, and it says he fed the ravens, but he was no Arthur. And that's around about 600. That sort of suggests that there's somebody called Arthur who's got a reputation for being a great warrior. But then the earlier chronicles, Gildas and Bede both refer to Aurelius Ambrosius as being that sort of Roman leader. And then I think it's Nennius that first refers to Arthur. He's a little bit later. So yeah, go on.
I think about 7th or 8th century, we have some written reports that date Arthur about 500. I think it's about 500.
The Battle of Badon would be about 500.
That means we have a gap of 200-300 years between the written sources which are not very definite, by the way, and the actual or supposed life. So we have a big gap, and that
yes.
And in that gap, many things may have, Well,
Gildas is writing around about 540, so that's not such a big gap. But he doesn't name Arthur. He names Ambrosius Aurelianus for the Battle of Badon. So if the Battle of Badon was in 500, we might imagine that Gildas would have, in 40 years later, might have remembered the name. I don't know. But then, as I say, this name Arthur might be related to other real or older mythical stories. But certainly until we get to Geoffrey of Monmouth, who you're more of the expert on Geoffrey of Monmouth, I think, we haven't really got the Arthur of the legends, the Arthur that we know today, the Arthur with Guinevere and Lancelot and the Round Table and all of that. That's coming in much later. So, and I think there's two traditions coming together, but they are quite different traditions, I think.
Do you agree with the idea that had not Geoffrey of Monmouth existed, we wouldn't have the same perception of Arthur today?
I think that's probably true, yeah. Because all of the later things are based on him. The Wace, the Norman version, Wace who translates it, and then I mean the stories sort of go over to France and come back again. But I think Geoffrey of Monmouth is the the father of the. Well, I mean, he is taking things that were already there. The whole thing about the castle and the dragons under the castle, that's already in Nennius. But certainly, yeah, Arthur as we know him today, I think, yeah, we can date him back to Geoffrey of Monmouth for sure. Yeah.
And now we have touched the Merlin subject. How do you feel about Merlin? Do you think that he is also an older, bard or a figure of history or legend, or somewhere in between?
I don't think there's, well, I mean, the Celts, if we're going back to the sort of pre-Christian Celts, they had druids. So, I mean, it's possible that he's supposed to be one of those. I mean, there's Irish stories about somebody called Mog Ruith, who was a druid who apparently was able to do useful things in battle with his magic, but not particularly credible stories. But yeah, I mean, Merlin is a very, very interesting character because, I mean, I think we can just accept that he's a fictional character. He is coming from Welsh sources, and his name originally was Myrdin, I think it would be pronounced with a double D. And I think it's Geoffrey that has to change that to Merlin, because in Latin, Merdinus would be a poop reference. So he changed his name. But yeah, I mean, the legends have it that his father was a devil, and who'd presumably used magic to rape the mother in some way. There's lots of stories like that where, I mean, even the getting of Arthur himself is Uther Pendragon isn't a devil, of course, but I mean the means are similar. So we have that situation where he's half devil and half human, and I mean, this is where it gets a bit more Christian, I think, where he chooses the good. I mean, in Malory, he's very much aligned with the church, but at the same time, he seems to be controlling everything that's happening in the later stories. So is he a force for good or for ill? It's hard to say, but he's certainly a fascinating character. Yeah.
What about Camelot? Is there any historical evidence that a castle by this name may actually have existed? Or the closest thing we have to Camelot is the Dune Castle, if I remember correctly, to the Monty Python's the Monty Python's movie.
Well, I have to admit, I'm not very good with that side of things, but I don't think we've got any record of anywhere called Camelot, but there is a Camlin, which I think is in Scotland, because Andrew Breeze has just brought out a book where he argues that King Arthur is real, and is I think from that sort of lower part of Scotland that we talked about before. And I could be wrong about the Camlin thing. I have a feeling that the Camlin is in Scotland, but I mean, really, the stories are mostly, they're definitely British in that sense. And I mean, don't forget that when the Anglo-Saxons came, we've got this sort of pushing of the Britons out, north, west, south. So some of them are in the north of France, Cornwall, Wales, bits of Scotland, Ireland. But certainly the stories are mostly, the earlier sources, I think, are mostly Welsh. Yeah. There's not just Camelot, you've also got Tintagel, and I think that is a place.
It's a Cornish castle.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the short answer, as far as I know, there's no Camelot, but
it could be. It could be.
But I mean, that supposes that he was a king. He might not even have been a king. I mean, the earliest things are sort of suggesting that he's some kind of Roman trained Romano-British soldier or general or something. So, yeah.
So what about the name Pendragon? Apart from various interpretations that have been out there, is there a real lineage following that name? Do people in England today have the surname Pendragon. Is that because
they'd be in Wales if they did, but no, I mean pen means head, in in the literal and metaphorical sense, and dragon is a dragon. So I think that is coming from Geoffrey of Monmouth's story of the dragon that's seen in the sky with the two rays of light coming from its mouth, and they're the sort of lineage of Uther Pendragon, and that's where we're told that he gets the name from. I mean, pen as a prefix, there are lots of pen prefixes in place names particularly. But Pendragon, I think,
but
is
no dragon.
no dragons as far as I know. I mean, as I say, this isn't really my field, but as far as I know, we've got no dragons.
By the way, in Greece, if we make the name Pendragon, head and dragon, there is a very common surname, Drakopoulos.
Oh,
Yeah, and maybe we should research that.
maybe it was Greek. Well, I mean, the original the origin legend for Britain is that there's somebody called Brutus from the Trojan War coming over. I mean,
our adversaries. Our adversaries.
Yeah. Well, yes. So I suppose it's not impossible. But yeah.
Well, you never know with these things.
Well, when I lived in France for a bit, and I was constantly being told that Arthur was French. So I think everyone can claim him a little bit.
Maybe they based that on the fact that Britain and Breton, or I don't know the pronunciation, Breton, it's closely connected. Maybe this is the
well, there's also the fact that the Welsh, the French call the Welsh Gaulois, and the word Wales is actually an Anglo-Saxon term or a Germanic term for a foreigner. It can also mean slave. So, I mean, the Welsh don't call themselves Welsh. Wales in Welsh is Cymru. So, and Gaul and Wales is the same word. So they could perhaps see themselves as the same people. I mean, the Brittany in the north of France is it's the same culture and the same peoples that were in Britain before the Saxons invaded. So there is a connection there, but I think the reason why they think that it's French is because of the French tradition of Arthurian stories with Chrétien de Troyes, who made a lot of the big changes to the stories, which very much made it. I mean, as I said, there's this sort of back and forth where there was a great interest of the Normans in the matter of Britain and the sort of British stories, and you've got Marie de France and that who's collecting all of these what do you call them, Breton lays, which are sort of like sort of poems from Brittany, but Brittany is also linked to, as I say, to Wales and that. So there's this sort of back and forth of the stories. So they go. Chrétien de Troyes takes. I mean, the Geoffrey's tale is translated by Wace into Norman. Wace is translated by Lyman back into English as the Brute. Chrétien de Troyes takes the stories and runs with it and creates the Grail cycle and brings in Lancelot and all of that. And then that comes back to England with Malory. And I mean, for me, Malory is my favorite version of the whole thing.
We were kind of introduced to Arthur by Malory in Greece, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much here too. He's the most famous version, and of course you've got lovely modern versions based on that too. The best one for my money is what was his name? T.H. White, who wrote The Sword in the Stone, and he rewrote Malory. It starts off as a children's book, but then it becomes more of an adult book when he looks at Lancelot and Guinevere, and it's very beautiful. And he has Merlin growing younger. So the reason that Merlin knows the future is because he's lived it, and the older he gets, the less he knows, which is quite funny. But yeah.
So, what is the connection of Arthur between him and Wales, because we have a story that Arthur goes to the Welsh underworld, which is called, let me remember, I think the Welsh underworld is called Anon, and he tries to do some stuff there. So he's pretty much connected with Wales too, as far as
Oh yeah, I think he's probably. I mean, like I say, I think Wales really. I think that the origin of the story is Wales, but obviously the Welsh, they're now in a little country, whereas before I think it stretched a bit further. But yeah, the Mabinogion, I think this is the story, the wedding of Owen and Culloch that you're thinking of,
Yep.
where he has all his warriors, and he has a sword, which is obviously let's see, where did I make your notes? Can't remember what the name of the sword was.
You're referring to Caliburn.
Califulch or something, which is Excalibur. And he has a dog as well, Cabal, I think it's called, or Caval. Yeah, so those stories, I mean, it's a bit like the 12 tasks of Hercules. They have to do all of these impossible tasks to so that Arthur's cousin or nephew can marry the giant's daughter. So those are Welsh stories. The Mabinogion is very strange, a group of texts, but yeah.
And we can see a pattern here, that the hero does impossible tasks, and we see it in all kind of mythologies, in Greek, in Welsh, in Norse. Heroes, sometimes gods make the deeds of the heroes. They are not so much overpowered in Norse mythology. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you asked me before about why the story is so enduring and so popular, and I think that these are great heroes that can do impossible things, but also against the impossible odds. They are sort of the underdog. I mean, the Britons fighting the Saxons are the underdog, the men doing things that a giant tells them to do. So I think that might well be part of the obviously the later stories, the romance stories. Arthur is not, well, initially he's the underdog, I suppose. He's a boy with he's the son of a king, but nobody knows this, and you got the sword in the stone story and all of that, which is really, I love those stories. But yeah, mostly I think he's an underdog. But also interestingly, in the there is a big connection, I think, between the romance stories and the earlier stories, and that is that in the earlier stories we have all of these separate kingdoms that were infighting, but they are brought together. I mean, we see this in Nennius when you have the 12 battles that ends with the Battle of Badon, that he has brought together all the kingdoms under his leadership. So he sort of united a disparate kingdom, and that's exactly what you get in Malory as well. That's the first achievement that he has, is getting all of the separate kingdoms of Britain to swear allegiance to him. So that is a common point between the two, I would say.
What do you think for yourself as your favorite character apart from Arthur, and why? And why, obviously.
Well, I really like Lancelot and Gawain, I have to say.
In the Malory.
Yeah, well, Gawain is interestingly, Chrétien upstages Gawain. Before, Gawain was the #1 knight, and we have some wonderful. There's the most interesting sort of 14th century poem about him called Gawain and the Green Knight, which is an excellent story, and it seems to be a story that's about doing valiant deeds, but actually it's the quest that he's on is, he doesn't realize it, but it's more of an internal moral quest. But in Malory, Gawain is not quite so. He's not always right. He doesn't always do the right thing. He also does some bad things, and I think that kind of makes him a little bit more human. And Lancelot, of course, he's the best knight. He's a very upstanding moral person, but at the same time he's having an affair with the king's wife. And I think what Malory does with that is really beautiful. I mean, the death of Gawain and Arthur holding the dying Gawain in his arms, and then I find all that very, very, very moving. So yeah, I think probably Gawain and Lancelot would be my favourites. Oh, which reminds me though, there's another knight called Owain, and he actually is a historical character, which I only found out a short while ago when I was thinking about this. So Owain, who's in Mallory, he's in pretty much all of the stories actually, as a knight. Owain in modern English would be Owen, which is quite a common name. But he's Owen Mab Urien, so his father was King Urien. And he was that's southern Scotland or North England.
From Orkney.
No, southern Scotland. So it's right near. So this is what I was saying before. When we talk about Wales today, Wales is like this little blob on the right of Britain. But I think before it would have been that kingdom would have been going up. I mean, certainly the people, whether it's different kingdoms or not, the people, it's going up in a band up towards the south of Scotland. So past the Lake District and into the south. My geography is a bit hopeless, but I think that's about right. Into the south of Scotland. So he would have been from somewhere around there. It was a kingdom called Reged, but they spoke Cumbric, which is very similar to Old Welsh. And he fought the Angles. So Urien, his father, is a real historical person, and his poet was a chap called Tailesian, who also has there's a real Tailesian and then there's a mythical Tailesian, and he puts Owain into some of the stories, and he's also a great leader in the Mabinogion. So he's a real person. I think his most famous story is one with in Chrétien de Troyes, where he has a lion that follows him. He rescues a lion from something, and the lion follows him round and helps him out. So that's quite interesting, because that's a character that's gone right through from the earliest through to the later legends. And when have I got a date for him? So he died in 595.
595. Let me check it for future reference.
So if we've got the Battle of Baden in 500, it's like 100 years after the Battle of Baden, but he was a real figure. So he's obviously getting mixed up with the Arthur legends as well, but stays in for some reason. I don't know why. But I thought that was particularly interesting that he was real.
It is indeed. And how do you feel about the fact that Galahad was granted the Grail rather than Arthur, because we see Arthur as a model of virtue, and
what is he?
and Galahad takes the prize. How is that? How do you explain?
Because Arthur and Lancelot, I mean, you might have expected Lancelot to get it as well, but they are flawed. They're not, from a Christian perspective, they're not pure. Arthur has slept with his sister unknowingly, but he has, and he's also done, he's not
well, he killed people, first of all.
Killed people. I mean, in Mallory, and I don't know where this story comes from, because I mean, Mallory does talk about his sources. He talks about the French book, but he has a Herod moment right at the beginning when Merlin tells him, he knows his own fate, that he's going to be entombed in a rock, and he says, you're going to die in battle, and your kingdom is going to fall apart as punishment for the fact that you slept with your sister. I mean, he's innocent in a sense that he did not know that it was his sister, but that has tainted him. So I think, and so the Herod thing he does, Merlin tells him that a child born in May, I think,
in May
will be the source of the coming down of the kingdom, and he has all the babies put in a boat and sent out to sea, I think a rudderless boat with no sailors or anything, and it sinks. But one baby that crawls back shipwrecked onto an island and is.
No, I also have a 30 minutes restriction from Zoom, so here we are again with Dr. Eleni Ponirakis, and let's continue where we left. We were talking about.
Oh yes, about why Galahad and not Arthur.
Yeah.
So I was saying about Arthur sending off infants in a boat. I mean, it's very much a Herod story, and I don't know what the source of that is.
And it doesn't sound very Arthur-like.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It's very much out of character, and I do wonder why Mallory left it in. But I think, you know, he's writing this in prison, and I think he's just sort of getting into his stride. So it's sort of written chronologically. It's not something that he's able to go back over and work on. So he's just including everything he's got. But he does a great job of making it into a coherent whole, I think. But yeah, so obviously Arthur, even if we take out the thing about the babies, he slept with his sister. He's not a saint, is he? And Lancelot, who would be if it were not for the one flaw. I mean, that's why he's made to feel that he would have been granted at least a vision of the Grail, but he's made to sleep for 24 hours or 24 days, which is for the number of years that he's been having this affair with Guinevere. At the same time, it's not overly moralizing because both Lancelot and Guinevere have a good end. Mallory tells us that she was a faithful lover, and so she had a good end. So the fact that they were faithful to each other is something. But yeah, I mean, so Galahad is pure and perfect. He's also a bit boring, isn't he? Really, let's face it.
It's perfection is boring. If you don't, if you aren't flawed, you aren't a human.
Yes, exactly.
The interesting thing is that you can surpass yourself by your philosophy, by your morality, and if you are born perfect, it's not very interesting indeed.
Yeah, exactly. So they make the best of it, I think. And of course, the whole marriage thing is a different thing, because on the one hand, that if we're looking at things sort of historically, marriages of kings and queens is political, it's not romantic. And then you've got this literary convention of courtly love, which is all about forbidden love. So it sort of fits into that. And it also creates a lot of interest for Lancelot, who he's the best in many ways, but he has this flaw. And he lies because of it. So it's interesting. And I think Arthur knows about the affair and doesn't really care.
Well,
at least, I mean, I'm talking about Mallory. I don't know about elsewhere, but yeah.
he doesn't take action because taking action would mean losing his best friend and his wife. So in that kind of interpretation, he is also guilty for concealing the adultery in legal terms.
Yes. Some angelic legal terms. Yeah, but at the same time, I think that when we see the plotters who plot to reveal it, they're the ones that come across as dishonorable, not Arthur or Lancelot or the Orkney boys. It's it's Agravain and Mordred.
Agravain and Mordred. Agravain may had a jealous spot over there, but Mordred also had a very deep motive that isn't well known in the Knights. They think that he's a righteous leader.
Well, I think if I was going to write a novel, I think a novel from Mordred's perspective would be really interesting, because we don't look at things from his perspective. He's the baddie, but he has got plenty of reason to feel that way. I mean, if we take into account that, that, as I say, that Herod moment, his father tried to kill him when he was a baby. Afterwards, he accepts him and he recognizes him as his son, which is fair enough. But he's both his father and his uncle, which is always a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's a tragic story, which, however you look at, you cannot find a solution because everyone is partially right according to their worldview. Anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the tragic of the story, because it's a tragic story if you see it, because everyone is right and everyone in the end loses, because Arthur dies before his days. Lancelot is stigmatized. Guinevere spends her last days in a monastery, according to some.
Well, so does Lancelot. He becomes a monk and a priest, and he gives Guinevere her last rites because he sees that she's dying in a dream. So I think they both get there's a sense that from a sort of heavenly perspective that they've been forgiven. I think we get that.
But they don't get their earthly happily ever after.
No, they don't.
Yeah. That it's a tragic story.
Yeah. I suppose Arthur doesn't either, really. But is Arthur what about Arthur as the once and future king? Is he really dead? What about that side of the legend?
I would like to think that there is a common ground for all these myths, because we here in Greece we have our last emperor, our last Byzantine emperor, who was half Greek, and he sort of sleeps and waits to be called. And I think there is another hero that sleeps. I don't remember his name, but it's of Latin descendant. And I pretty much like to think that these legends have some kind of truth inside them. Maybe science hasn't visited all aspects of life. Maybe there is some little spot that we haven't touched, and maybe in that little spot hides the idea of these returning kings and the truth behind that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's a very nice story, all these returning kings, because the people, the simple folk, like to think that there is something else beyond these, petty rulers, and maybe they can be redeemed somehow.
Well, apparently, I mean, you'll notice at the end when Mallory deals with that question, and he pronounces that it's unlikely, but he doesn't entirely rule it out. Some people say that he will come back, and apparently, the Welsh really did believe that he would come back, and there are stories of sort of brawls and fights and people being killed who said that Arthur was not coming back, that they felt about it that strongly, that they, so I suppose for that, but I mean, you can understand why, because the Welsh were pretty much oppressed for a very long time. Yeah. So that's the sort of historical overlap. Another historical overlap, which is quite fun, is the effect of these chivalric stories, that all these stories of chivalry, which set very high standards of behavior and courtliness, that the actual knights of the time then tried to imitate that in real life. So there's also I mean, how many of them did that successfully? I don't know, but there was certainly this sort of onus upon real knights to be chivalrous in the way that it's been defined in the literature, which is quite fun as well, I think.
Yeah, of course, when you have a higher standard, you can always be similar to the higher and not to the lower standard, and that's a good thing to take an example of.
Yeah.
If you have this. By the way, is Arthur and his tale, or his its academic function, taught in schools or in universities, or in any way the Arthurian legend has found its way into teaching?
Well, certainly at university, when you do an English degree, I mean, depending where you do it, but in several places where I've taught, it's been an option, and it's a particularly interesting option because it allows you to look at to compare the sort of British English versions with other versions, because I mean, there are also German versions of the story, and obviously the French ones, and so on. So yes, in school, I think it used to be very much a staple of the primary school teaching. Certainly, I know that as a child, I read. I think that was probably I mean, as you know, my research is early medieval, and this is sort of later medieval. But I think the reason I was drawn to the medieval, that started as a child when I was reading books about dragons and stories about Arthur and Merlin, and that they really capture your imagination. But I'm not sure. I don't remember my daughter being taught the Arthur stories at school. There was a very popular TV series in the 80s that people were still watching until quite recently, called Merlin.
In the 80s or the 90s?
Oh, it might have been the 90s, sorry. They merge when you get to my age.
So you mean the one with Sam Neill?
Was Sam Neill in it? He might have been.
He was Merlin in
No,
Miranda Richardson.
Yeah, I have seen a thing with Sam Neill as Merlin. But no, this one had it was a TV series, and it had a very young man as Merlin. It's a young man with
Mm,
sticky out ears, and
I'm trying to remember what are you referring to. Maybe
it's just called Merlin.
it
The
didn't
series is
find its way to Greece, maybe.
maybe not. I mean, it's
Because
quite
I
fun.
have seen everything.
So what's your favorite adaptation then, if you've seen everything?
It's definitely Sam Neill's Merlin. I think he captured the essence of mythical Merlin, and also he had a great cast. He had Miranda Richardson. He had Martin Short, whom I love. I absolutely love Martin Short. He had Helena Bonham Carter. All the
Yeah.
alpha
Yeah.
names, and
So is
I
this a
think
movie? Was this a movie?
it is called a TV series, but it is not a
Okay.
TV series. It's kind of a two-part movie,
Yeah.
and
What's it? So what's the actual title of it?
Merlin.
Ah,
90, I think it
excellent.
was 1998. And I was very sad to hear that Sam Neill passed a couple
Yeah.
of days ago. And
Yeah.
after he got rid of the cancer. Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
that's,
he got rid of cancer, and 3 months later he passed. So
oh,
it took its toll,
yeah.
apparently.
Oh, that's really sad. I mean, I think he's an underrated actor. He's very good.
Very much underrated. You
Yeah.
are talking exactly what I am thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
What's
I
your
should check that
favorite?
one out.
What's your favorite Arthurian movie?
Well, I have to say I do like the Monty Python.
Well, it's on a different level. It's
It is on a different. But interestingly, the one of the funnier bits is when the English they come and they say we're looking for the Grail, and then John Cleese doing his thing says we have loads of them. And I always thought that was just, Monty Python absurd humor, but in fact, it's because originally a Grail was just a French word for a cup, un Graal, and in the first story, I think in Saint Chrétien de Troyes, they're looking for un Graal, a Grail. So
with a
there were
French
loads of
accent,
them.
yeah.
Yes. So there were loads of them. So I thought that was funny. I don't know. There's a very good one by John Borman. It's a bit dated now. I think that was earlier, possibly the 70s or 80s, I think. I can't remember the actor who played Merlin, but he's very impressive. He's got this sort of almost like molten silver thing on his head.
Excalibur. You mean Excalibur?
Excalibur, the John
With
Borman film. Yeah.
Liam Neeson and the other the English actor. What's her
Been a
name?
while since I've seen it. Was it Helen? Not Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren. Yeah, Helen
Helen
Mirren. Yeah.
Mirren. Yeah, yeah. I mean that was good. Um,
I
yeah.
didn't like the Sean Connery one.
Oh
With
God.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get it. I didn't
No,
like that.
there's not been many really good ones actually. It's a shame. We need somebody like what's his name, Peter Jackson to
Yeah,
sort of.
yeah. He could respect the material. By the way,
Yeah.
there is a good series nowadays that's called Pendragon.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an English uh, it's of English making, and all things considered, it's a pretty close, all things considered,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
because they make Taliesin the father of Merlin. Well, he isn't, but anyway, you can relate to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's good if you take
Pendragon.
yeah,
Oh.
Pendragon, and let me see who produces it. Pendragon series. It's season one only.
Mm.
It's based on a book. I didn't know. It's called The Pendragon Cycle: Rise of Merlin.
That is ringing a bell. Right a minute. I shall check that out. Yeah, I mean, you've also got the Disney, which is
Yeah,
I
the,
like.
the classic there. Yeah. Also, the Disney is okay for introducing, the legend to
Yeah,
younger
I mean, this is the
audiences.
thing that if children saw that, they then took an interest and wanted to find out
Yeah.
more. It was a sort of entry into the Arthurian world. But yeah, if you haven't read T.H. White, which is they took the first part of T.H. White's version for the Disney film, but it's a really beautifully written book. There's the whole trilogy. The first one's The Sword in the Stone, but the whole one is, oh, what's it called? Well, anyway, if you look up T.H. White, that's pretty much all he's famous for. Yeah, it's based, that's just a retelling of the Mallory, but it's really beautiful. The prose is beautiful. Yeah, but I think I think you're right. I think we do need a decent new version of that. There's certainly room for it. Then it would get young people back into learning about those legends, and it's got a lot going for it. You've got female characters that are very interesting. Ah, who's this?
This is Phoebe, my youngest.
Hello, Phoebe.
This is
Γεια σου, Phoebe.
Eleni. Πες γεια σου, Eleni.
Well, γεια σου, Phoebe. Oh, she's very sweet.
Thank you. She also loves the Arthur.
I'm sure she does.
Yeah.
I'm sure she does. Well steeped in all the stories.
So, you are a professor of Old English.
Well, in England, I'm not really a professor. A professor in England is a very high position. You have a chair. I'm a lecturer in Old English.
Yeah. You are an academic of
Yes. Yeah.
of Old English, and how does Old English relate to modern English? Is there any, does it sound the same?
No.
Or it's incomprehensible by someone who speaks only New English?
I think it would be, initially it would appear to be incomprehensible, and it's a much more sophisticated language. In some respects, I think it's a little bit like the difference between ancient Greek and modern Greek. Modern English is super simplified because it's a sort of lingua franca. But Old English, which is, it's Germanic, it has a case system, and it's got a very sophisticated grammar, 3 different genders, and
three genders.
Yeah, we have masculine, feminine, and neuter. So, and nominative, accusative, genitive, dative, all of that.
Like Greek.
Like Greek.
Yeah.
Yes. So a much more sophisticated language. A lot of the vocabulary is, once you look at it or listen to it, you can find the links to a lot of modern English vocabulary. But they also have some beautiful. They create a lot of compound words and kennings. Well, you'll know kennings from the old.
Kennings, yeah. Kennings are very much of my liking. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So there are kennings in Old English.
Yeah. And not quite to the same level as in Old Norse, but some of the kennings in Old Norse, you're actually quite disappointing when you find out what they mean. Yeah, it's great laugh. Yeah, so you've got things like the whale road for the sea, bone house for the body, that kind of thing.
That whale road may have been Norse, or the Norse used it from the English when they.
Well, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, the languages are cognate; they're the same language family, and the mythology, of course, the pre-Christian mythology. Odin, for example, Woden in English, is in the genealogies. Now, he's in a lot of the Anglo-Saxon genealogies, but surprisingly, he's also in Nennius, in the nearly all of the genealogies in Nennius. Woden begat Beldeg and so on. So he's also in the sort of British genealogies, which is very, very odd. Obviously anomalous, really, but yeah. And of course, in Old English, we've got Beowulf, which is a fantastic text about a great hero. And there are some similarities, though there's a lot more similarities between Beowulf and some of the Norse texts. But there are some similarities between Beowulf and the British stories. Beowulf, for example, Kay in the Mabinogion, who is similar to Sir Kay in the later stories because he's got the similar grumpy personality. He can hold his breath underwater for 9 hours in the Mabinogion, and that's quite similar to Beowulf. And also the story of Grendel the monster is similar to some Irish stories called that The Hand and the Child, where you've got a troll that puts its hand through windows and steals babies and gets its arm chopped off, and then the hero goes and into an underground lair, and there's the monster and his mother. So very similar. So there is some crossover. I'm not quite sure how that happens, but I mean, I suppose people listen to stories, you know, and there's going to be a little bit of mixing. So, yeah.
And there is also the theory that the same story can spark simultaneously in different regions, which I don't understand how that can happen, but there is this theory that I read about, and maybe that's why in all of the world we hear the same stories with the different layers and
I think
interpretation.
somebody once said that there's only it's a very small of actual stories. There's only a very small number, and that all the stories are just different versions. But you can certainly see the cross-pollination. I mean, in the Norse legends, Odin hanging himself on a tree and stabbing himself in the side with a spear is obviously coming from hearing stories about Christ. So there's a sort of a mixing, and a mixing of fact and fiction, because there was no. Today, historians can't do that. There's this expectation on historians to be factual and accurate, but that's a modern idea. So in the past, that's why you've got the Welsh annals that also mention Arthur, and that sort of purport to be pretty much factual like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, but you know, they've got the story of Arthur in there. So yeah.
So how would you feel about the prospect of Arthur being you know, a figure that is global and unites many, you know, many figures in under his roof?
Well, I mean, I think in some respects maybe he is, but as you say, times change and things fall in and out of fashion, and I think for young people at the moment, they know very little about it, so it's a shame. But I think that it's certainly a story that could, you know, if we had a big blockbuster American movie about it, maybe a sort of, or Australian or New Zealand, wherever it is that Peter Jackson comes from, that could change things, couldn't it? That could then make, I mean, look at the Tolkien and the Hobbit. I mean, that was always been huge, but made even more huge by the fact that there were these movies that then got people reading the books and developing new obsessions. And I think that maybe the same thing would be true with Arthur. And the stories are wonderful. I mean, one of the things I enjoy going back to and reading over and over again is Mallory. It's a big book, but I just enjoy reading it as, you know, as a story.
And
Not
you
just,
are
you know,
reading it in the language that it was written, and it's
Mallory's very simple to read. That Mallory's English is very much like modern English. The spelling's a little bit different, but pretty much anyone could read Mallory, or you could very easily get a normalized spelling version of it. But you know, then the early ones are either written in Latin or Welsh or whatever, or Brittonic. So not so easy to read. But Mallory is Mallory is very easy to read. His language is it's pretty much modern English. Surprisingly, because I mean it's still quite early.
it's 13th century.
15th century, 1400s. But it still counts technically as Middle English rather than early modern English. But you know, when you look at it, it's modern, really. It's not like Chaucer. But at the same time, Gawain and the Grey Knight was written, and that's more like Old English. That is unreadable. I mean, unless you know what you're doing, it's you do need to read that in translation. So, you know, different things, different dialects in England and different traditions meant that the language was different. So, but yeah, Mallory's my favorite.
I also like Mallory, but I also give much credit to Geoffrey,
Yes. Oh, yes, of course.
who,
Yeah.
you know, who gathered all the stories and made that possible for
Yes.
Mallory.
Geoffrey is the father of the Arthur legends, I think, very much so. He takes the what there is and he turns it into a real story, and creates he creates the real legend, I think. So yeah, yes, we have to give Geoffrey credit, and it's also very readable. It's a very enjoyable read. So
Yeah, it's like a chronicle for for everyday folk who can
yeah,
access it. And
yeah.
by the way, Jeffrey mentions of a book that he based his research on. Well, I know in modern science this book is deemed non-existent, but
Mm.
consider the fact that that may have been a book. How valuable would that book be?
Well, don't you think it's probably Nennius? I mean, Nennius has the thing about find a boy without a father, and the story
Well,
with
I
the
haven't thought of that, and now you say it, it all makes sense.
I think, I mean, and maybe he had other things as well, but certainly those parts of the story I think we've also got Guinevere, and then you've got Vortigern and Hengist and Horsa and that. I mean, what are the dates? What are the dates for Nennius and Geoffrey? Geoffrey's definitely later. Nennius is
Jeffrey, I think 1136, if I remember correctly, he published the uh,
right, and Nennius is about 800. His Historia Brittonum. It's about 800, but a lot of the elements of the story are already there. Um, he says that he's gathered his information from a heap of old chronicles. So he's saying the same thing as Geoffrey. I've been gathering information about it. I mean, there must have been loads of stories. Clearly, there's the fact that Ambrosius Aurelianus becomes Arthur, but we've already got Arthur mentioned in. I mean that the Gododin poem from 600. It says he was no Arthur, which suggests that in 600 Arthur was already a legendary figure. So we just don't know really.
where there is smoke, there is fire.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there must have been an Arthur, who has inspired all of this. Maybe one day we will find, we will
We,
find things. They found a stone of about 20 years ago I think in Tintagel,
oh,
that had Arthur's name on it. But I don't know how. Oh, maybe it didn't. Maybe that's me remembering it wrongly.
I
Anyway, it was something
I
that was a
do
bit.
remember of something like that, but I have only one mind.
What we need to find is a tomb that says here's the once and future king.
Well, we don't seem to be able to find the tomb of Alexander the Great, who actually existed. I think with Arthur, it's a little more difficult, considering the fact that he was buried in a different plane of existence.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, yeah, I mean, we're also, I mean, there's rumors that because we lost Alfred the Great, and Alfred the Great, we should. He's very much a historical figure. We should be able to find his grave. But I think there are some academics saying they think they know where it is. So that could be the next one. Like we had Richard III a few years ago. We might get Alfred the Great back. Fingers crossed. But Alexander, he died a long way from home, didn't he? Or am I remembering wrong?
Yeah, he died in Babylon, and his general and friend Ptolemy took him to Egypt. There he remained for until I think 1 century after Christ, and we have historical evidence for that. And that after that, we don't know anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Maybe,
he's a bit of an Arthur figure, isn't he?
yeah, indeed he is, with all his
Except that he's
flaws
real.
and all the undoable things he did. All the legends, we have a chronicle that it's fiction, that that the chronicle says that he buried the giants under the ground and stuff like that. So he's an Arthur figure. Yeah, you're right.
And we have in the Anglo-Saxon, so not the British tradition, but the English tradition. We have stories about Alexander the Great as well. In the same manuscript as Beowulf, actually, there are stories about Alexander and things about him going down in like a sort of submarine thing, and also going to India and speaking to the trees of the sun and the moon that tell him his future. So he was, yeah, and he's a legendary figure in Anglo-Saxon England too, as
Very
well as
interesting. Very
yeah, yeah.
interesting.
It's a good
So,
picture. I'll send you the pictures.
of course, I would be very happy to. Tell us a thing or two about Pembroke College you are teaching in, and how does it connect to Oxford? And we can close the podcast. Uh, because if we continue speaking, we
I know we'll be talking all day.
yeah, it's a very interesting subject, and I think we have a very a lot of things to talk about. But
Yeah,
we must sum it up for our listeners.
yeah. Well, Pembroke. Now I'm going to embarrass myself because I don't know the founding date, but it's an old college, and so Oxford University is made up of colleges, and the colleges are independent, but the subject teaching, we have faculty, and then so college teachers teach in college, and then you've also got faculty teachers, and it sort of works both ways. So I give lectures in faculty as well. It's a lovely little college. It's very friendly, and yeah, it has a really nice environment. It's one of the smaller ones, so it's kind of cozy, and everybody knows everybody, and it's a really nice place to be. So.
And so the Oxford is the mother university, which is administratively and other factors included responsible, and it has a lot of branches that are interconnected with it, something
Yeah,
like
so
that.
you don't apply to the university, you apply to a college.
But it gets approved by the mother college.
No, the colleges are sort of independent. They
But
do their own.
the rules,
Yeah.
the rules.
Oh, I see. Yeah. The teaching is organized at faculty level, so all the exams and the syllabus and that is faculty, which is the university. It's not college based, but then the colleges do the teaching.
Do you have any Greek students currently?
I don't. Not at Pembroke. I taught at UCL last year, and I did have a girl from Cyprus who was very, very good. So we do, and I had Greek colleagues, of course. Yeah.
Very nice to hear. I want to thank you for this very interesting conversation. I'm sure our listeners will find it mostly interesting, and this will help them realize some aspects of the Arthurian legend they didn't realize yet. And thank you for everything.
My
And
pleasure. If anyone has any questions, they can, pass them on to me. I'll be happy to try and answer them. But
you're very nice. Thank you again. And as far as the podcast is concerned, we are going to make an episode next week, apart from this one. So stay tuned.
you.